Welcome to the Road to Real Estate podcast. I have a couple quick announcements before we start the episode. We are giving away the Yeti cooler, the roadie sized one. Our goal is to give it away by Memorial Day, so that way you have it for your summer fun picnics or beach getaways. Also, if you give us a like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, or a follow if you're on Spotify, that'd be greatly appreciated. Have a fantastic one and enjoy the episode. Welcome to the Road to Real Estate podcast, everybody. This is John, and I've got the amazing Lauren Cremani with me, as always. We can't do these podcasts without her. She's that good. This week's topic is open houses. And basically, we're going to go over what the listing agent should do, what the host agent should do, how to get them, what to do once you get them, how to choose them, all that fun stuff. So we're going to start right off with the listing agent side. I think that's probably the best way to go because most of this podcast is going to come from the hosting agent side. Does that make sense? Right. So the best way to do an open house is have a listing. That's the easiest way, right? If you have the listing, you should be doing an open house. Let's go into that a little bit, Lauren. Go ahead.
Yeah. So when your listing is, it's actually a part of our listing presentation. When we talk to sellers, it's part of what we set up in the expectations before we go live. So they understand that there's going to be an open house and what open houses look like. For a seller, they may be reluctant to do an open house. So you might have to sell it a little bit to them. What they will say is, I heard nobody buys an open house that comes to or nobody buys the house that they go to an open house at. And that fact is mostly true, right? It's less than 10% of people that go to open houses actually purchase that house. However, the organic internet marketing that happens beyond the open house, the actual 2-3 hours that you're physically in the house, is where the gold is. And that's what you need to explain to your sellers, that, using the MLS to project the listing as an open house, it really has a wide reaching effect on Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com, all the major Homes.com, all the major websites really love open houses, and they will push your listing so much further because of it.
Exactly. You get tons of internet traction from it. And that's one of those things that's free advertising. And it's a lot. And people are getting emailed from that. There's all sorts of updates coming because of that. It's a big deal. It puts your house in front of other listings, especially on your newer listing. It puts you in front of a lot of people, a lot of eyes on it. So they may not come to your open house, but they may contact their agent because they saw it in their email to schedule an appointment for a walkthrough, So it's a big deal.
That organic kind of reach is magic. You when you have a listing, we'll use Zillow as an example. Zillow is very popular here, as I'm sure it is most of the United States, but here it's bigger than Realtor.com or Trulia or even Homes.com. I think they're still fighting for space here. And when you receive something in your email, you check it. It's very targeted marketing. It's really strong. And not only that, but everyone who checks that email and looks at that house creates a more interest, and the organic goes up even higher.
Yeah,
and then you add an open house. The open house makes the algorithm put your house higher than one that doesn't. And so there's certain things that you're doing that are organically increasing the number of times your property is in search results, and the higher it is. And so there's all kinds of great reasons to do that. Now, if you have not put it on the MLS, your multiple listing service, as open house and put the dates and the times, none of that will happen.
Yeah, which I just experienced this last weekend. I did an open house as a favor to another agent, and then I got to the house and it didn't appear to be ready. And then because of the way this house was, it made me curious. I'm like, let me go check. And I checked Zillow first. I was like, I don't see anything on here for open houses. And then I went to the FMLS and I was like, I'm going to be sitting in a ghost town for the next 2 hours. I committed to this and I did my advertising on my side. But as a host agent, I don't get near the attraction as a company like Zillow. Like the 20 people that saw it on my event or saw my little video walkthrough is not going to compare to the millions of people that go on Zillow every day. In this area, it's millions. The numbers are staggering when you look at the numbers on Zillow. So it really hinders you. It does a disservice to the seller. It does a disservice to the listing agent. It does a disservice to the host agent. Everybody kind of loses out when, let me guess, everyone has to do their part, right? Everyone has to do their part. Anyways.
Yeah, no, 100%. even like I have Zillow searches in states that I don't live in when I've
Yeah.
traveled somewhere and I've enjoyed looking at something. So the reach is really far. So adding it to the MLS is the number one job of the listing agent. And making sure that it's advertised. Some of the other things are going to overlap, like, making the flyers and putting out the signs. We're going to overlap that with the host agent. But the number one job for the listing agent is to explain it to the sellers, the importance of it, as well as get it to the point where it is ready to be an open house, right? Is it show ready? Does it look like the pictures? Are the pictures done well? Those are the kind of things that would be the listing agent's job. Put it on the MLS, make sure it's ready to be shown, and make sure that the pictures bring in.
And another good thing on that, as the listing agent side of things, is I know it's not mandatory in Georgia. A seller's disclosure goes great. When I get ready to do an open house, I like to read the seller's disclosure, know what's going on, because that, let's be honest, it's a big pamphlet. Most people walking to the open house aren't going to read it. They're going to read the FMLS maybe. But I like to read the seller's disclosure, because when they walk in, I'm like, hey, just so you know, this house is only 4 years old. They just redid the water here. I like to feel like the expert in the room when I don't have any of the information, and I only have the exact amount of information that the possible buyer or the looky-loo came through.
Or the general public.
The general public comes in, and they're asking me questions. I'm like, I don't know. I have no information on this property. So that was another thing from this weekend, is I had no information. They didn't give me a flyer, no seller's disclosure, no nothing. It wasn't on the FMLS either, because I always look, because you can get documents off. And it was just like, I have no information on anything in this house. I know nothing. So I found myself going around looking at the fridge. I'm like, okay, this is the fridge, with looking at the brand of the fridge, and I couldn't figure out the brand of the stove. I was looking all over. There was no label of the brand. I'm like, I know nothing about this house. Well, in the end, I didn't need any information because no one came, but that, that is what it is. But I like to have as much information as possible, because I want to come across as an expert. If I want this person who's never met me to come into this house and possibly sign with me and put an offer on this house, or ask me to show them other houses, I want to look like I know what I'm doing.
Right. This is your job interview. As an agent, if you're trying to get buyers, this is a mini job interview. You're showing them what you know. You're showing you how you can do it. I mean, it's quite the it's kind of like a mini job interview, because you're giving them a glimpse of how you work. And so if you don't know the information about the house, it's just not impressive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It makes you look bad. If you go in there and ask a bunch of questions and you have no answers, as the general public, like, what do I need you for? I know everything you know about this.
Yeah. You don't position yourself from a place of knowledge, right?
Yeah.
You're just like them. You're an equal. And I think the next step of the open house is also how to find one. Even if it is your listing, there are some listings that don't necessarily make good open houses.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you have to be smart about the open houses that you choose, including the location, price point, condition. You need to go in with eyes wide open. So we had talked about how do you get an open house as a listing agent, but it's also how do you choose the open house, whether you're the listing agent or not.
Just because they give you an open house doesn't mean it's the right open house. Obviously, you're going to know the people that you want to cater towards as a realtor. Not everyone's going to be trying to sell on the exact same price point. So you're going to want to know the type of person that you want to work with as a person. You may not want to work with someone that's worth millions, because it's just, they're going to rub you the wrong way the whole time, or vice versa. So you want to do your price point, and then you also want to know the area that you're showing the home in. So for me, in the future, my goal is to look more in my area and stay closer to where I am all day, every day. That way I know this area. I can tell you school districts. And I'm sure as I get more and more practice, I will learn more and more areas and learn more about school districts and stuff. And my area will expand. That's the goal. But I want to, like I said, once again, I want to know what I'm talking about when I open my mouth. So as I become more knowledgeable, like spend an area, know the median price in your area, so you know that your house is priced correctly. So that way, if your house is way overpriced, no one's going to want to look at it.
one of the worst open houses I ever did. It was my first year in real estate, and I remember I began much earlier, so these houses are now very expensive, nice houses. But I remember I found an open house for $700,000, and that was unheard of, and it was so exciting. And I was going to do that open house. I went into the neighborhood and I put signs up everywhere, and I this was when we had food. I brought cookies and I brought waters, and I was really excited. The HOA did not allow signs, and the listing agent did not tell me. So this little new agent who had spent a lot of money on her new signs, every single one of them was taken. And then when I got to the open house, I was so happy. I was ready to sell that price point. And everyone that came in was mad. They were mad that the price was way too high and that it didn't make sense. The neighbors were mad that came in. The people were like, "Why are you doing this?" And they were asking me as if I had done it. And I was just this little girl trying to get a buyer. And everyone that came in was just mad. Yeah, like I made cookies for you. And it was something that it really stuck with me, because that feeling of people coming in going, "Don't you know what you're doing? Why would you price it at this?" It was hard because everyone came in with that perspective. It was just known. And because I just picked the highest price point, I didn't look any deeper. It was my fault. And I lost all my signs.
Yeah, it was a costly weekend.
It was a net loss. Needless to say, I never did one from that agent.
Show up than have a bunch of angry people show up. That sucks. I'm sorry you had to go. I haven't dealt with that yet. Hopefully, I don't ever have to deal with it. But let's be honest, time, it's coming. Someone's gonna get it.
It's kind of inevitable, but at the same time, it was a learning experience. I learned from it. Don't just blindly take an open house based on the price point that you see. Right?
Well, that's what I did this last weekend. I looked at the price point and I'm like, man, that's low. There's going to be a ton of traffic here. This should be really good for me. And there was a whole slew of things I should have saw before I got there, and I should have did my due diligence to follow up to ask if it was going to be put on the FMLS for the open house. I should have pushed to like, hey, you didn't do a seller's disclosure. I should have done a lot of things differently. And so this weekend, even though I didn't lose signs and I didn't have anyone angry with me, I could have done more on my end before committing to this. Does that make sense? To go like, you know what? This is probably a bad idea to do this one. The backyard was literally the landfill. Like little things. If I'd have done any research, I was like, it's Thursday. I got an open house. I'm on a roll. Let's do this. And it cost me because I didn't do my part to make sure, hey, I looked at that price and said, hey, that's really cheap. This is awesome. And then in hindsight, going back and looking at the rest of the purchase and sale history of this particular area, I realized it wasn't price cheap. It just was cheap for what I was used to looking at. You know what I mean? So
that's a really great point, Jonathan. Looking at your area. In North Atlanta, we have so many different areas. And so the average price point for that area, it was no longer an affordable house.
Yeah, exactly.
Compared to like if you put that, in the Alpharetta, Johns Creek area, if you're familiar with Atlanta, that thing, it would be a 1-bedroom, 1-bath condo if you could find it. And then it would have a $300 a month, HOA fee on top of it. It would be, unheard of. You would have had standing room only, a line out the door.
Yeah,
and so knowing what your median or average price is for your area is so powerful, that having that information just lets you know if it's a good one or not.
Yeah. Well, we live and we learn.
Yeah. So priced right. New, if it is new on the market, it can be a more profitable open house for you because it attracts more people. If it's not new, it can also have a price reduction recently. That can be really
all my open houses, I generally just go for the newest one. I haven't tried to do any price reduction stuff or anything that's been on the market for a while, just because I had good guidance from another realtor. I don't know if you guys know her. Her name's Lauren Carmani. That's probably why I haven't had most of these mistakes. She's pretty good person to follow. So I get it. A lot of the pitfalls that a lot of people aren't going to have. Hopefully they listen to this podcast and they learn from us and go, listen.
Yeah, learn from my mistakes, guys. Why make your own when you can learn from my mistakes?
And I don't listen well, so I'll tell you about my mistakes too, even though I was probably warned not to do them. So, so priced correctly, new on the market, or a recent price reduction shows well. If you look at it on the FMLS and the pictures don't look good, just remember the general public's looking at those same pictures. If it doesn't get you excited or interested in even looking at the property, chances are people are getting the same feeling. So you really want good pictures for your open house, because that's what's getting sent to people's emails and stuff. And if you're doing events, you're doing your part as the host agent, you should be going on Facebook and making an event of this and taking those pictures and putting them up, so that way your sphere can see them as well, because you want your sphere to look at those pictures. You know what? I would like to look at that open house. Even if your friends look at it and like it or say they're going to go, that builds the algorithm to show it to more and more and more people. Even if get your friends to like it, get your friends to say they're going. The more people that see this thing, the better for you. Good pictures are great because that'll get more people interested in it as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's priceless, Jonathan. Pictures are paramount. It's, aside from the price, it is the number one thing that could get people in the door or turn them away before they ever, drive up.
And pictures can get you in trouble too. There are some photographers that take some incredible pictures. I've gone to houses that look so good, then you get to the house and you're like, this is the house? What were they doing? And it goes both ways, because you can get bad pictures and you get to the house and the house is stunning and they've really done that house a disservice. And then I don't know if they're taking pictures on wide angle lenses, how they're doing it, but we actually bought a house from Lauren, and you look at the pictures, and it's not an insult to Lauren. It's not Lauren's fault. We bought the house. This house looks stunning from all directions. And I got to the house for the first time. My wife purchased the house, and it was down a hill. And I don't know how, and to this day, I'm baffled at how they took a front end picture of that house, because the hill in front of it was so steep. I can't fathom how that picture was taken. And I was like, you get to the house, and you're like, how in the world did they take these photos? I thought for a long time, I looked for marks in the front yard for where they dug down to get the camera low enough to take the front of the house. So yeah, it's amazing what a good photographer can do for you. I mean, let's be honest, they did that house it showed
And
really
when we
well.
sold it, we did the same thing too.
Yeah, oh yeah. But I mean, anyone that's going to look at the house has to get on the hill. It's not like we bought it sight unseen and no one went down that hill.
Well, I don't think you saw it. I think only she saw it, right?
Yeah, I didn't see it till I brought the moving truck there.
And she was not worried how she was going to get the trash cans up the hill. She said, "Oh no, Jonathan does that."
Yeah, exactly. My job. Yeah, it was a ton of a hill. But yeah, the thing is a good photographer can do miracles. A bad photographer can really sandbag your efforts. So, I mean, that has nothing to, it has to do with open houses. It's kind of a tangent, but so now good pictures shows well.
Yeah, and if you're choosing an open house and it doesn't have good pictures, you probably want to just choose another one, because it's an indicator that people, if you're turned off, so are other people. Mm-hmm. And if you think it looks old or dingy or is that worth the price, they're going to think the same thing. So if it doesn't have good pictures, you need to think twice. That's definitely a yield sign on choosing an open house. So we talked about price point. We talked about the agent being willing to advertise it. Yeah. We talked about the photographs, location. Mm-hmm. Make sure that you know about the location. If you don't, do you have time to actually research it and drive around? Do you know where the closest grocery store, gym, social things like parks and rec and schools, do you know where these are? Not that you have to be an expert on every area, but when you walk in that door, it is your job to be an expert on that area.
Exactly.
Knowing where that grocery store is really important, or where the school ranks. It's not your job to tell them exactly what the school ranks, but it is your job to have an understanding of it. That if they're looking for the top tier school system and this is ranked 1 out of 10, this might not be the area for them. And you don't necessarily need to talk school ratings with them, but you need to ask them more questions and figure out what they're looking for.
And it's a good point, is that, let's be honest, if we're doing the open house thing, chances are you're a newer agent. So you should get a lot of practice doing CMAs anyways. Do a CMA for yourself to see if the house is priced correctly for the area it's in. That's something I wish I had done, because, like I said, on paper, the house did look like it was, this is priced great. I mean, who isn't going to want to buy a house at this price point? And then after being there and doing it and knowing more about the area, after I left, of course, when it was too late, I realized that it wasn't priced great. It was probably overpriced for the area it was in. So that's one of those things, like, just because you see a number, if you're not doing your research, that doesn't mean that number is good or bad until you can have comparables to what it really should be.
Yeah, the knowledge around it is so important. Okay,
So,
so we talked about what to do as a listing agent. We talked about how to choose one.
mhm.
So what do you do, Jonathan, the days before leading up to the
Well,
open house?
I think it's important for us to go how to get one because
Oh, how to get one.
yeah,
Sorry.
we now you have to choose one, but what you should be choosing is in the state of Georgia. It may be different for the other 50 states, but
There's
you
49 other states, John.
for the other states, we're gonna have a couple more apparently.
Oh, ooh,
We're not.
ooh.
I think it's gonna be 53 soon. I can't. Terrible. So, anywho, in Georgia, we within your brokerage you can show any houses from any agents within your brokerage. So we are in a very large brokerage in our area. We have 750 agents. So what I do is I go in the FMLS and I put in our brokerage office's code, and it'll show you every house listed by any of the agents in our office. And at the bottom of each listing we'll have that agent, and you can go down and call that agent and request to do an open house with them. It's really good to do because you're building relationships with these people, and if you do a good job on their open house, or even if they don't have an open house for you because they already have someone doing it, having a good conversation puts you in their mind. So I've had it where I've talked to an agent that didn't have an open house, and then a few weeks later they call me up because they need someone and they know I'm top of mind, and they'll call me and ask if I would do one for them. So it's really good to get in the habit. I always do it on usually Monday or Tuesdays. I try to get locked in for the following weekend. That gives me time to do my research, get knowledge on the property, all that stuff. So that way, when I comes around the Sunday, I do a little bit each day that I have that knowledge when I go into the house. So that's the way I do it. I call all the agents in my office that have properties hitting that weekend, basically, because I always go for new properties. But there's a way to do it, and I've never done it with other brokerages. It requires paperwork, and both brokerages have to sign off on it. I've never done it. That's more of a Lauren thing. So, how would you do it if it's another agency?
Well, check with your broker for your local laws and what they and your local policy. I would say that is our first disclaimer. But let's say the house next door to you, or two houses down, three houses down, goes on the market, and you want to do that open house, and that agent is not doing that open house, and they're not in your brokerage. There's a form you can sign from broker to broker to allow you to be the open house agent, but obviously not the listing agent. And as long as you have a good professional relationship and can work together, it's turned out great. For, at least for me in the past. And it's networking. It's really important. I mean, a lot of agents see other agents only as the competition, and they see it as adversarial relationship. And that's not really true. We need to make sure that we're networking with other agents and that we're working well with other agents, because it's going to help us in the future. We had multiple offers on our last listing, and there's an agent that I've closed a deal with before, and I know his team, I know him. He's fantastic. And we went with that offer. It was easy because I know that he will get us to the closing table. And that kind of networking is invaluable. So make sure that don't close your mind. If there's a different one that you want to do that's an open house that is perfect in your area and close and everything checks all the boxes, just in a professional way, approach that agent and see if you can host
Well,
it.
you never know what's going to come from it. I mean, I got my first buyers under contract last week. We ended up closing that contract, but they wanted to stay with me, and I worked out a deal with their agent. Literally, what happened was he went away on vacation, and they found the house they wanted to put an offer on. And because I've had good conversations with that agent, and they're not from our office, my phone rang, and he's like, "Listen, I got these people. They're ready to buy. I'm out of town. Let's work out a deal where we both get paid, and you can get them under contract and do that for me because they want to buy." And so, just by being nice to people and being a good person, other agents, most of the time they might be competition, but everyone gets in a bind or leaves town and needs someone to do something for them sometime. And it got me my very first people under contract, and so that's pretty wild.
Well, and take that one step further, Jonathan. I've actually listed other agents and other brokers' houses.
Yeah.
I mean, I've sold other active agents' properties. Like, they're active in the MLS, and maybe they only work with buyers. They don't know what to do. They've asked me to be their listing agent. I've worked with some that, they say, okay, my specialty is commercial. I really don't feel like I have the wheelhouse for this. And so it is not uncommon to do favors and help each other out or split a deal, it is actually way more common than you think. So make friends, be nice, be professional.
Yeah, I totally get it. I'm right there with you. Like I said, it paid off in both senses. Be nice to people. It turns out people like nice people.
Yeah.
So now we've called the agent. We have our open house. And we have to prepare for that open house now. So we've done our due diligence. We like the photos. We like the price. We've contacted the agent. They said, yes, you can host my open house. What do you want from that agent?
Yeah, I'm looking for any disclosures. I'm looking for any intangible information that they have. Maybe it's something they couldn't write down. Maybe it's something they didn't write down. I'm looking for any information that I have that the general public doesn't.
Agreed. That makes you look like the most intelligent person in the room when they walk in because you have that information. For me, it's always the buyer's disclosure, but also pamphlets and flyers. A lot of the listing agents will already have those made with photos and information on the property, so you don't have to make your own. Love having those pre-done as well,
Mm-hmm.
It just, like I said, it just makes you look good, and especially if they have really professional flyers and everything else,
Yeah, I think that, you have physical flyers at the property. You also maybe have flyers for door knocking, which we can talk about in a second. There's a digital flyer for social media. During COVID, I kept the flyers digital because people didn't like touching and passing stuff around, right? So all of my flyers were digital. And then also creating social media events are really important, and signs are really important. But you need to
get your signs up as early as you can if you're according to the neighborhood.
I was gonna say according to local law. There are some cities
cities
and counties.
Days, sometimes it's a couple of hours, a day of, and sometimes it's no. Yeah.
Do
Also,
not
the
get your
listing
signs
agent
stolen.
may have requirements. I've done open houses for agents that want their signs and not your signs go into it as well. So get all that stuff straight. You may not want to do one where you want to do their signs because this is your opportunity to get your phone number and name out there. I mean, it's up to the individual agent. So you set it up the way you're comfortable because everyone's got different stipulations. It's their listing, so they're going to have their demands on it.
Jonathan, that's a great point because the first broker that I worked with, when we would go to the open house, they had us remove the other agent's name and put our name on the actual sign outside.
Oh,
and
wow.
all the open house signs had our names on it, right? The open house agent name, not the listing agent. And then when we left, we'd switch it back to the listing agent. That was the broker's policy, though. So hear that loud and clear. Technically, the broker owns the listing anyway, not the individual agent, right? At least in the state of Georgia, we are designated to that listing based on the relationship and the paperwork we signed. But the broker is the official owner of that relationship, even though we might have that personal relationship. And you got to think, if an agent isn't willing to let you put your name on the directionals, directionals are the signs that we put with arrows that show you how to get to the property. If you don't have any advertising, if your name's not anywhere, then are you actually trying to get new business? How mutual is
it? Yeah.
Right, because that's your point. Your point is not just to do a favor for a listing agent or for a seller. The point is that this is a way for you to get buyer clients or seller clients.
Everybody wins situation, they get the opportunity to get eyes on their listing and you get the opportunity to possibly represent somebody. So it's a win-win, and it's really important. It shouldn't be you getting all the wins out, and it shouldn't be the listing getting everything out of it. Everybody should come out better because you were able to do their open house.
What goes around comes around.
So yeah, if you're not liking the terms or the way things are set up, then you don't have to do that one. You can move to the next one. It's your right to choose. Don't get locked into something where you're sitting there for a couple of hours, or say you're doing multiple days the same thing where you're miserable because you're like, I'm spending my whole Saturday doing this for somebody and I'm getting nothing in return. You should get something in return too.
Yep, not charity. We don't sell real estate as a charity. This is our life's work. This is what we're doing to pay the bills, to make the income. So I think that's really important. It needs to be something that benefits you. And if there's no benefit to you, then you need to reevaluate and figure that out.
Yeah.
And I would encourage the other listing agents to reevaluate, because if you take away the benefit from the buyer's agent, then.
But the thing is if you don't do a good job as a listing agent, and you need someone to do an open house, they're not going to be there if you haven't done your part. If you haven't pulled your weight and you burn enough bridges, guess what? You're going to sit there on a Saturday yourself.
All by yourself.
All by yourself. That's going to be you, and then maybe then you'll learn to to advertise it.
Mhm.
You know?
Yeah.
Go
So
ahead.
speaking about signs, I want to jump in there on signs. You really got to look at what's locally happening. I know that I have talked to some agents in some markets where they put out 25 plus signs. You know, they do really inexpensive, smaller signs and they just litter the whole world with signs. In our area, I think we're kind of moderate. Most places have rules about signs, but as long as they're not too obtrusive, you're fine. And they're as long as they're down within 24 hours. But check locally and figure out what your laws are so that you can make sure that you're doing the right thing for your clients and for yourself.
Yeah. So yeah, signs are important, but also putting stuff up on your social media is good. We've already kind of touched on that a little bit, but that's prepping to go into your weekend. Another thing, bring sign-in sheets for everybody. So when you get to the house itself, I have a whole thing that I do where I make sure I have sign-in sheets for everybody. I make sure I have a FMLS. The listing agents, this has happened to me where I'm about to go in for the open house and I'm like, hey, just so you know, we just signed contract this morning. I bring houses around that house, like just in case, like, hey, just so you know, you're in this house. All these houses are nearby. They're similarly priced. This is kind of thing. So depending on the situation of the open house, I bring more or less information. Like I said, I bring local houses and their FMLSs. I do the FMLS of the house that I'm sitting in, always have that on hand. And then I always have flyers, and I generally make my own flyers because a lot of the agents will make flyers and they won't obviously have your information on it. So what I'll do is I'll generally make my own or ask if I can alter theirs to put my information on it as well. Get their permission. It's important to get their permission for that. But that way you have a number, so they take it with them and they have your phone number that they can call you, because they can go to your open house and think about it for 24 or 48 hours and be like, you know what, I really did like that. Let me call them and get more information or ask to see it again as a tour. And in that case, you could put them under contract, which is great, you know?
Yeah, and with the sign-in sheets you were talking about, Jonathan, that you had mentioned, I find that my sellers are increasingly wanting to know who's
Mm-hmm.
in their house, that they're not as trusting. And so I think it is completely acceptable for the seller to say, please have everyone sign in so I know who is in the house.
Yeah.
We can't guarantee they put correct information, but I do think that that's respectful to the seller.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they are literally opening their house for strangers to walk through. So
Yeah.
knowing who's there is
It is a
not a
stressful thing on the seller for sure, knowing that there are a bunch of people walking through their home. Obviously, it's less stressful if you're hosting a vacant home, but if it's fully furnished and people are living there, it's weird to have a bunch of people go through and open your closets, open your fridge. You know what I mean? Like, it's very
look at the
personal.
skeletons in your closet.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, that's where I keep my Halloween decorations. That's what
Yeah,
it is,
yeah.
okay?
That's that. That's
Yeah,
decoration. Yeah.
yeah.
So let's see. So so you're bringing to the open house? You said copies of the disclosure,
Yep.
copies that MLS, the multiple listing printouts of other houses in the area that might be available if
Mm-hmm.
this house is not their cup of tea. You said brochures in the
Yep.
state of Georgia. So Jonathan and I are realtors, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have additional brochures that we offer to our clients. So we have those available as informational brochures, new flyers that you have printed yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And then here would be my question: where do you stand on food, Jonathan? Do you bake a pie? Do you bring water? Do you have red wine? What do
So
you do?
this is going to be controversial, everybody.
Uh-oh. Dun dun.
Yeah, I know. I've done nothing, mainly because I heard someone talking about it at literally our Christmas event, and I hadn't only done a couple open houses, and the idea of food is taboo. Having said that, I was a pastry chef for so long. I really want to bake like crazy for one and just go ham, but I know the results of cookie crumbs in the carpet, and if they bring kids and there's stuff, like, I get it's a bad idea, but I want to so bad because I'm good at what I do. So
Isn't
yeah,
that funny?
I struggle every week now because now that I know that used to be a thing, I was like, dude, I could bring that back, and not only could I bring it back, I could kill it.
Yeah, before COVID, pre-COVID, when everything was different, it was not unheard of to cater or to have cookies or food. In Georgia, it gets hot. Hotlanta over here, we're in Hotlanta, and so I do have water bottles in the summertime. Typically, I do find that that's very, very kind, but I just don't want to clean up what some kid eats in some bedroom that I didn't see, right?
Mm-hmm.
For me, I don't want to clean up anybody else's mess. And
Mm-hmm.
trust me, there's always, always mess.
Yeah.
So be smart about it. Like I said, when I first started, people used to bake cookies in the house, so the house smelled good, and that. People would also bring candles. I don't know why people want to light fire in other people's houses, but people sometimes do that. I don't find that that is necessary, effective, or even a good idea
Yeah.
myself personally. But if that is your jam, or if that's what's happening in your area, just be smart about it. Maybe go visit a few open houses and see what other people are doing around you.
I just feel like I could bring it back, like, did you see John's open house? And I would like my open house to be so good it's full of so many realtors because they just want to come eat what I baked on Saturday for Sunday. I get it's not right.
And here's what I would say. We haven't really talked about it, but there's a different event that you do in houses called a broker open or a caravan. And what that is that is a time for brokers only, like agents and other brokers, to go through your house. And it's typically on a Tuesday or a Thursday, depending on what market you're in. And normally it's around or just before lunchtime, so sometime between 10 and 2. And that's where I do serve food. I have had those catered, champagne, alcohol, wine, beer. There's no limit on those because there's a different level of accountability when you have professionals in the house.
Of
And
course, yeah.
there's also no children.
Yeah, that's fair.
Children might be a factor on the
So
food
what
too.
you're saying is you want me to host a broker's open house so I can show off what I can do. I got you.
Yeah,
I got
yeah,
you.
yeah.
I
We'll do
heard
the
you.
brokers open. Yeah. And honestly, the higher the price point, the more effective a broker open is.
That makes
Because
sense.
every single person that is selling at the luxury price point will more than likely preview that property before they actually show a client.
Yeah, of course. No, that makes sense.
So we're not going into that today, but that's a little side note.
So now we're at the property. We've got all of our paperwork in front of us. We've got our waters if it's hot, nothing else unless the seller wants you to. I mean, that's everything comes down to
Oh
the
yeah,
seller.
I would definitely want permission. If I was going to bring food, I would want the seller to give me permission, 100%.
So what I like to do once I'm there and set up, I will immediately go and the surrounding area and knock the doors around that house. And I use the excuse of there's going to be a lot of people coming and going. If we're parked in front of your driveway, da 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 da, and if that way you get you in and talking to them, just give me a call. Here's my card. P.S. If you want to come check out your neighbor's house, we're here, and this is your opportunity to choose your neighbor. Come on over. So I always invite them over. I always let them know cars are going to be coming and going. If anything happens or need someone to move a car, feel free to give me a call. And that is just more names. And I've had neighbors come over and sign into the book and just to see what was going on in their house, especially if they recently renovated. I think that's the number one thing. If the house is recently renovated and people come over to see what it looks like now, because maybe they came over Christmas 3 years ago or 4 years ago, and now it's like, oh wow, they did a good job, or whoever picked it up and flipped it, just to see, a lot of curiosity in the neighbors, and it's been pretty easy. Never had anyone slam a door in my face for saying, give me a call in case if your driveway gets blocked and you need a car moved,
Yeah. No, that's great. I think that that's a nice way to kind of ease in and to get your foot in the door. You could also just invite them to come over. Like, hey, they've done a lot of work prepping the house. If you want to come by and see it, you're more than welcome to. That tends to work well. And then make sure that you definitely ask them a question like, who do you know that's looking to move in here? Right? Make sure that there's something that is a trigger for them to think about who could move in, or a trigger for them to give you more business, right? You want to
Didn't they
create.
borrow your shovel 3 years ago? Don't you want to see if it's still in the garage?
I do not encourage stealing, or borrowing, or re-borrowing. I don't know what that would even count
Well, I
as.
mean, technically it was their shovel.
Yeah, I am not the judge on that. When we're door knocking, the standard, I don't know, you can tell me if you do it differently, Jonathan, is 5 houses to the right of your open house, 5 houses to the left, and then 10 houses across the street, so that you're getting the general vicinity.
Well, I have not been on a street that has that set up yet. So, I mean, this is Atlanta, everybody. We're not in a grid system. So a lot of times I just I go out from the house, like try to get a decent distance from the house, but I've not run into a situation where there's 5 and 5 ever. And so I just do what I can. They're also never perfect grids. So sometimes it's a Y shape and I'll go down to that cul-de-sac and come back and go to the cul-de-sac. Georgia's built a little funky. So yeah, I just knock.
We're meandering. We just don't have
Yeah,
straight.
our roads kind of
Yeah,
go
it's pretty-
around. So I just do what I can. I don't have a set number that I aim for. It's all neighborhood dependent. For me, it's one of those things like if I get knocking and I start getting positive responses from the neighborhood, I get into it and I'll continue. You know what I mean? But if I do my bare minimum and nobody answers the door and I'm just shoving a business card in a door crack or something like that, then I'm like, it doesn't encourage me to keep going. You know what I mean? So I'll do less on one where it's a very uninviting neighborhood. But I do knock always. It's just a matter of how many I knock. Because like I said, I'm one of those people that like, if one person comes out and talks to me and they're encouraging and happy and exciting, it's like, I'm ready to go at that point. I'll knock for miles.
Yeah.
Like 3
Well,
miles that way, I'm doing an open house. If my car blocks your driveway,
not as effective of a strategy at that
yeah,
point.
but that's the thing is like the more happy people I talk to, the more I go like, this is a good neighborhood. I just keep knocking this, you know, and then just handing out cards, you know. So I don't have a set thing, and it goes by the vibe of the neighborhood. It really, you know.
Yeah, I think I would encourage people to at least do 10 houses, though.
Yeah.
I think that it's easy to go, I did the next door neighbors, I'm good. When you're door knocking, there's a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear, a lot of just trepidation, and it's very easy to convince yourself not to do it. So I would encourage you to do at least 10 houses and then go from there. You might like it. You might find that may be your client. Or even if they're not looking to buy or sell right now, they might be in the future. And so we've gotten some listings from it because people were like, oh, I really liked that you went above and beyond and that you did this for the house. That's what I would want in my agent.
And another thing, everybody, with everything being more modern, know what to say when you encounter a Ring doorbell because they take messages. So you have to leave a little video message. So I encourage, the first time I ran into that was obviously in real estate. I didn't even know it was a thing. And I fumbled a couple of those before I figured out what to say in front of a doorbell. Then I was like, oh, I got to leave a message right now. I wasn't thinking, you know, I had no idea that was a thing. So it caught me off guard and unawares, but you learn real quick that everyone's got a Ring doorbell and they may be home. They're not answering the door until you leave a message, you know, so get used to leaving messages.
And smile and wave and kind of bend down to the Ring doorbell camera so they can see that you're not just the delivery guy.
Put my hand in my jacket like I'm reaching for something.
Oh my gosh. We call it the Napoleon.
Yeah. Put it in there. I check my pocket watch.
So what do you do? Let's put you on the spot, Jonathan. What's your Ring doorbell script?
Oh, don't do this to me.
I did. I totally did this.
I do. I mean, it doesn't change much from when I answer the door, I'll be honest. For me, it's like, I just let you know that I'm right down the street. I'm hosting the open house. We're going to have cars coming and going. And I just wanted you to be aware and also would like to invite you over to come take a look, see what they've done with the home. I'll leave my business card right here up on the doorbell. It depends on the door situation because sometimes they don't, but I'll tell them where I'm putting their business card and feel free to contact me. It's an opportunity to choose your new neighbors. Have a good day. And I just like short and sweet. And then you'll see me run through the yard.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I don't know if I did it right or wrong.
You want to hear mine?
Yeah.
You hear mine?
Yeah.
So I wave really big. Welcome to the South, y'all. I'm from the South. I wave and I smile. I say, hey guys, we're holding an open house, 2 houses down, 3 houses down at the Smiths. They worked really hard getting their house ready to list. Come on by and see it. We'll look forward to meeting you.
Oh, that's way shorter than mine. I thought mine was short and sweet.
Mine's like the
New Englander
title.
in me.
Mine's a title. Well, I get them in the door and then I'm long-winded,
Yeah, that's fair. I guess I think I've softened quite a bit. I didn't use any sarcasm. The New Englander's really leaving me. All right. So the next thing I do is after I've done door knocking or on my way back to the house, I start to shoot my Instagram videos for it. So I usually do a storyline type thing. And with the storyline type thing, I usually start in the front of the property. I announce the property, say the address, and then I do like a little guided tour, and try to get a little bit of Instagram love,
Yeah, and I feel like you can do it Instagram and the best tool or the best one that you use is the one that works best for you. I find that Facebook Lives do really well also. People, especially if I leave them up, they're not the ones that delete immediately, but that stay on for longer. You can add pre-recorded video clips to make some of those occasionally, and you can do things, but you want it to feel natural and authentic, and that's one of the good parts about doing it live there.
Yeah.
People are okay with mistakes. They're not so caught up on that.
Yeah, like I said, I do mine with my iPhone. I don't have a gimbal or anything. I'm not trying to make a production out of it. And I go through and I try to be quick but not like dizzy. You know, I try to move at a good pace, you know. I'm not like, look, you know. So I try. I mean, sometimes it takes a couple of takes, but I do try to keep authenticity to it and not be fake, you know. If I'm in a bad mood, sometimes it comes across, you know. I was
Right.
told on my last one for last week, like, hey, maybe smile. I was like, I was so angry. I was there. I did my part, you know, but I get it. Like, try not to let your mood get in there, you know.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good idea. I think that especially if you get in there and you're not getting a lot of traffic, you could do maybe some more detailed videos like, hey, here's the kitchen. If you're slammed, those videos stop when the when the open house starts. But I think that if you are bored or not being not as full or have a lull, you can definitely do it then as well.
Yeah, for sure.
So once you have, so at this point, I guess it's started. I will say that door knocking you can do a couple days ahead of time. You can do right before. It just depends on the neighborhood and what you know of the time period that you expect people to be home. What do you do when people arrive?
I generally don't like to follow people around the house. I mean, if someone wants me to, I tell them it's an option, but I tell them I'll be right here in the kitchen. If you need anything, I'm more than happy to go around the premises with you or whatever. But I just try to be, I like to have them their own because they're going to have conversations with each other and they're going to be going through what they're going through. So I try to post up in the kitchens what I like to do, and I put all my clipboards out in there. And I welcome them to the home. I encourage them to sign in and let them know that I have lots of information for them, but feel free to go look around first, you know. So I'll sign in, go look around, I'll be here, and then if you have any questions, we can go through that, or we can go over what, you know, whatever is on your mind at that time. We can go through and do that. So that's how I kind of do it. I like to let them be on their own, and then after they come back, I'll go, oh, did you happen to see, you know, that they did this or that this is newer, and give them information and facts on the home after they've walked through the home, like the house is newer. I love roof information. Everyone has a question about a roof. So the more information I have on a roof, the better.
I had no idea you loved roofs. Okay.
Oh, I don't love roofs, but it's just like, it's like people walk into the house. How many people are standing in a yard checking out the roof on an open house? Most of them walk in that front door and then they go around the inside. I would be honest, most people don't even walk around the perimeter of the building unless there's a really nice backyard. You know what I mean? And so having that information, like, I don't know if you noticed, the AC unit outside is newer. It was just replaced 2 years ago. And like the roof is done, stuff that, and people are picturing themselves living in this house. They're not thinking about, oh, that furnace looks old and this is, the roof was, you know, new, you know what I mean? Unless of course it was written in the FMLS because it's new. They usually like, oh, it's got a new roof or they got a new this, you know. So for me, I just want to be that source of information. You come back to me, ask questions, and what I find is if I have like, for instance, the house I showed for you, after having those conversations about a new roof and everything being updated, they take another lap because now they're looking for the things that I just told them about. You know what I mean? And it gives them something to look for and re-look at, you know. Then they usually come back and I encourage them to take a flyer with them. And if they have any questions, I always give them a card. I want to make sure they have my information on hand, you know. And I don't know, that's what I do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of similar. It's kind of funny. So when I welcome them in the door, hi guys, come on in. Thanks for coming in. The sellers have requested that you sign in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And and I bring them to the sign-in sheet, and then I say, take a look around. If you depending on how the house is, I pick out 2 or 3 features that I want people to look at. So the only thing I do differently is I tell them ahead of time, like, hey, go on upstairs, have a look around and let me know what you think of that master bathroom. They just redid it, right? So I give them kind of an assignment to look for, and then when they come back, I ask about that. Now I say it to the same thing to everyone, so I don't forget what I said. And so I'll give them an assignment, but then I'll tell them to come back to me. And I think you and I both said that. So that's very similar way to do it. And then I just make sure to close them, right? ABC, always be closing. Is this the type of house you're looking for? Could you see yourself in this house? Would you be interested in seeing more houses like this? on your sign in, a lot of times you already ask if they're working with a realtor. If they're really chomping at the bit, you say, I have a few, we haven't talked about this yet, but a lot of times you can schedule some showings afterwards. I have a showing right after this scheduled for the house down the street. Would you be interested in seeing that one as well?
I
If
will
you
add
build
that
that
to my thing.
relationship.
I always have a paper copy of my exclusive buyer brokerage agreement in my bag. Like, I don't put it out on the table, but I always have one. So that way, if they do want to do something or see something after, I'm ready to go with that. I don't put it in their face with like, hey, it's here, I can sign you now. But I do always have a paper copy on hand because most places I've showed at aren't going to have internet, and I'm not depending on my digital signing without the internet. So I do bring a paper copy of exclusive buyer brokerage agreements to my open houses because you never know. So I have it there.
Because with the new compensation laws, if you show the house without representation being defined, you may or may not be able to get compensated for showing, or if you haven't discussed with the other agent, the listing agent, what's the compensation, and you don't know about it ahead of time. So that's a great way to protect yourself. And it's a great way to build relationship. That comes off as being a professional.
Yeah, I'm very flexible on those, especially on the day of an open house. Like, hey, listen, I'm not trying to lock you in 6 months. We just met. But if you want to see these properties, we can do a contract for a day if you want. We'll look at these properties. And if you like me, we'll write a new one.
We can continue dating if you like.
Yeah,
this is the coffee date, not the.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't mind doing very short ones, and then as we show more houses, it's time to get locked in for a serious amount of time and do it for real. But on the day of an open house, I have no problems doing a short buyer broker agreement. It's no big deal. All right, so we've had people come to our house. We've done our 2 hours on a Saturday or Sunday or both. What do you do now? Like, we're done.
No, we are not done.
We're not done. There's more to do.
The dollars are in the follow-up, right?
Oh, yeah, exactly. Before we even leave the house, guys, leave the house the way you found it. So everything that was off gets turned off. Everything that was on stays on. You lock the doors. You put your key back. You get in your car and you pick up all your signs. Hopefully your balloons aren't all popped. Sadness if they are. And then
I don't care if my balloons are. Jonathan, there's one thing that we didn't mention, and this might be the difference in me being a female versus you being a male, but it just came to my mind: safety when it comes to open houses. You are with the general public. You do have people that you don't know coming in, and so you need to be smart about where you park your car, where you put your purse or your belongings, and where you keep the keys to the house and to your car. So some just real quick safety practices. I never park in the driveway because I never want to be blocked in.
That's fair.
I will park on the street. I don't necessarily mind if other people park in the driveway, but my car will be on the street so that if I needed to get away, I could. Number 2, I don't lead people around the house. I will follow them around the house. But what would happen if you went downstairs first? If somebody had a basement, you could definitely be locked in. I also keep the keys on my body in case something were to happen, getting locked out or getting stuck, or you never know who has automatic locking doors, right? And so I do try to keep those keys on me physically somehow, as well as my cell phone. Another thing, unfortunately, we do have to talk about this because there have been murders just in the past, recent times. I also have a system already in place with a couple of people at the office, as well as my husband. If somebody's being creepy or weird, or I'm getting a wrong vibe, I will call one of them. I'll say, hey, excuse me, just a second. I don't have a document from the house. I need to call my office or wherever. And I say, hey, Frank is my husband. Hey, Frank, I need the red file 123 Main Street. It's the one that has all the disclosures in it.
Yeah, smart.
So red equals emergency. Address, they know exactly where I am, because I love my husband, but I don't expect him to actually know the address of where I am. Right? Like he doesn't.
My wife
he doesn't
always
keep
knows,
up with my
but that's
house.
because she wants to see everything, and she tracks me on the phone. Like she
Right.
always has tracking. Like, so she knows where I am, and we share our location with each other. But I never thought about any of that because I'm a guy. I'm like, I can handle myself. I'm good.
Yeah, but it is something to be really aware of. Like, do not walk first into a bedroom. Do not be in a place where you could be trapped. Be in an open space where, have the doors, appropriately open that you could leave through, and have the keys on you so that you have.
Yeah, I always keep the keys on me because I'm afraid of being one of those people that loses the key. So it's always in my pocket, and I don't put it back in the box until everything is done and we're out of the house. You know what I mean? I know some people put it back in the box and they'll reopen it when they lock up. I always keep it on me.
I'll close the box up, but I will keep the key on me.
Yeah. I don't even do that. I bring the base of the box into the house with me and put it with my, like, I carry my backpack with all the binders in it. So I put the base of the box with my backpack.
Did you say binder or trapper keeper?
I meant to say trapper keeper. No, I'm pretty lame at open houses. I bring these like professional, really bland, nothing on them clipboards. It's lame. I know it's not nearly as cool. I'll get a whole series of trapper keepers and lay them out, and that'll get more sales.
Way
But
more.
yeah, safety is important, people. If someone's giving you vibes, don't let them block your entry or exit. Generally, don't walk around the house with people unless they have a question about something specific. I do post up in a kitchen, which usually has multiple, pretty open, and you can go from multiple directions. I never thought about it in that standpoint. It's just kind of what I did. But I also I'm a driveway parker. I want my car backed in. I like it to face out towards the road. I just think it looks cool.
Well, so that's your thing.
Yeah.
But but I think it's something to be
it's
said about,
super important.
being
I
aware.
agree with you 100%. Now I'm going to think of that at my next open house and be like, oh man, I have to change the way I do things, a little bit. So we've left this house safely. We got out. What do we do next? I did the job. What do you do?
Well, so follow up, right? I thank everyone who came to the open house. Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate your feedback. We didn't really talk about feedback, but I asked them, I said, the seller wants feedback on the property. So before you leave, let me know, because I'd like to write down what you think of the property. And if there's a certain feature that I know is a problem or I think is really great, I will ask them about those features. I ask them about the price point. I ask them about the neighborhood. If there's a problem, I like to give feedback to my sellers, very verbatim, exactly what other people say. So I will say thank you for your feedback. I think this is coming on, blah, blah, blah is coming on the market. Let me know if you'd like to see it. Or I heard another one's coming on in the neighborhood, which I only say that if it's true. I don't just make up stuff. But normally there's other things, and you've talked to other agents. And so, hi, Rigby.
He just wants to say hi. So yeah, we do follow up. I also contact the agent on my way home from the open house and let them know, hey, just so you know, we had so many groups come through. There seemed to be a lot of interest in this, that, or the other thing. I really like them to be involved too, because I'm building a relationship with them as well. So I try to keep them in a loop and let them know what happened at their home. And especially I've never had anything go wrong at any open house so far. But if there was, I would like to clue them into that right away. Like, hey, just so you know, this client tried to open this window and it got stuck and whatever. You know what I mean? Whatever the problem may be, hypothetically. You want to let them know right away. Like, hey, just so you know, this happened while I was at the house. Or they pulled open this drawer and it came off the hinge. Or, you know what I mean? Like, any number of things can be happened at any particular house. And I want them to know exactly what happened, how many people came. Because if I do a good job, I want them to be like, man, he really got a lot of people to go to my open house. I want to use him again. He's real informative. He kept me in the loop, So I want that relationship to grow too. So I call them before anybody else, any follow up. And I usually wait a day or two to do follow up on the open house. I don't know if I should be waiting, but I don't like to be on them right away. So I usually call, if I do an open house on Sunday, I usually call Monday or Tuesday just as a follow up.
So I would probably, I definitely do a thank you, right? I do a thank you faster so that I can show that appreciation. But yeah, the phone calls, I wait a day, because if they have anything or if they're going to say anything, they'll be more interactive after the thank you. And then that next day I make the phone calls. When I'm talking to the listing agent, assuming it's not me, I do talk about the success based on the number of groups.
Yeah.
Just a little side note, I don't say families, I say groups of people.
Yeah.
Right? I don't want to define them, fair housing and all that. Yeah. And so I say how many groups came in. So a group could be a single person, or a group could be a multi-generational family, or it could be a group of friends. Family? Right? No, I think you said group. Yeah, but I just wanted to explain it a little deeper. I think you said it correctly. And I judge the success of an open house based on the number of people or groups that showed up. And so for me, it's 5 or more.
Yeah.
If 5 or more showed up, I feel like that it's successful. There are some areas that I want more than that. And there's some areas that I was like, hey, I knew this was like a slimmer pool of buyers, so I knew this would be a little slimmer. But 5 as a general basis is my goal.
Yeah, of course.
Another thing is when I contact sooner, it's usually if I'm doing follow up with that agent and they go, hey, just so you know, especially it happens more often when I do an open house on a Sunday where the agent will like, hey, just so you know, we had some people look at the house yesterday and we got a couple offers in hand. I use that as an excuse to reach out to the people that came through during my open house and go, hey, listen, if you were serious about this house at all, I just wanted to let you know that there are offers in hand. If you wanted to get one in, now's the time. And
Yeah.
if you want to discuss that, we can go over that. And I use that as a way to open the door for that early conversation. Later, like for instance, the Monday or Tuesday after, I'll be like, is there anything houses you like that house? Would you like to see more stuff like that? I can get you into the system and I can email you from there and see if we can't get you other houses that you also like or like more than this one if they weren't willing to put an offer on this one. That's how I do it.
And yeah, it's great. And just remember, there's phone calls, there's text messages. You can friend them on social media if you feel like that's appropriate. Do not be creepy. You can send handwritten note. You can even, if it's a neighbor, you can do a pop by where you drop something off for them. Like, hey, I know you're thinking about selling. Oh, here's a CMA for you. And of course, email. Email's the other one. But remember, there's a lot of different ways to follow up with people and make sure that it's personal and that it feels like something that you would do.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I
So
think that's
get
everything.
that business. Get that
Yeah,
business.
look at that. Yeah, I think, listen, we're pretty good at open houses, it turns out. And
We
hopefully
are.
people listening to this or watching this are so excited by our open houses that they remember to like and subscribe and follow us if you're on Spotify.
You say, is it down there? Is the button down there?
The bell's somewhere.
Bell.
There. Yeah.
Button.
Do the thing, guys. Like, subscribe. We love doing this. I don't know if this is the right time to announce it, but we're at the end of our podcast, so I'm going to do it. I think we've had enough people interested in what we're doing with this thing that I think it's okay to announce that we're going to do something for the buyer side, the non-agents, to maybe do a class in the future. We're working on it. There's nothing set in stone yet. And also, we did figure out what we're going to give away next. We found the Rode Yeti cooler, the 24 hard. It's 14 by 17 by 16 inches. And
holds 33 cans.
33 cans and what is it, 26 pounds of ice?
Something like that.
Yeah. Listen, this memory is not great, but I'll say it like I know what I'm talking about. And the goal is to give it away by Memorial Day. Listen, people, it's just so you know, I always get Memorial Day and Labor Day confused. It's the one that happens before summer. We want you to have a nice cooler going into all your summer picnics and barbecues and take it to the beach.
And open houses.
Yeah. No, don't bring our cooler to an open house. Okay, so it's going to be a Yeti cooler. We'll start coming up with a QR code and everything here in the next week or so that way you guys can start entering to win it. I'm
going to put a link in the comments too.
Yeah, we'll put a link once we figure out how to do that. All the stuff that for the last one was done by Lauren, and so I'm going to refer to her expertise on that.
Yeah, we'll put a link in the comments.
Everyone have a fantastic week, and we're looking forward to the next one. I don't know what we're going to talk about yet, but it'll be real estate related, I bet.
Thanks, guys.
Right,
have a good week.
Everyone have a good one. Take care. Bye.